What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Stardust here. Welcome to a Gotham Knights video here on the YouTube channel. And today we have just had a questions and answers by the developers about Gotham Knights. They go into a lot of detail here, so allow me to waste no time at all. And let's get straight into this. I am poorly, so don't expect high energy, but I am going to cover this as best I can. So, Paul Hull? Either way, one of the developers asked how live is the open world in terms of civilians, weather, traffic, crimes, NPC interaction, enterable buildings, etc. Now, this was answered by Holes in Teeth, saying everything mentioned in that question is present in our Gotham City to some degree. Each district in Gotham has a distinct mix of citizens. Since the player will only hit the streets at night, some neighborhoods have more of a civilian nightlife, others are more industrial and bleak. We did get a chance to see the industrial and bleak, if you remember in the first gameplay trailer, when Red Hood is chasing after the ice cream truck. But you'll encounter Gothamites from all walks of life, and they will definitely have opinions about you and your vigilante activities. There's vehicle traffic of various types, pedestrians heading in and out of rail stations, city workers on the night shift. The weather varies from night to night while remaining true to the Gotham vibe. So basically raining and even more raining. Players will be able to enter a variety of buildings, usually because of some illicit after hours activity underway. And there is crime everywhere, both petty and major. So essentially, my worries about Gotham Knights is Gotham feeling relatively empty and unalive seem to be cleared up right there. If they were able to capture that feel of Gotham in different areas of the map, then that would be fantastic, and hopefully we could have an open world that may even rival that of Spider-Man PS4. Next question is an interesting one. It says, what made you set this game apart from the Arkham series? So, the rich mythology to the Batman universe itself. We wanted to be able to interpret and adapt the characters, that's both the heroes and their rogues gallery, in new ways that would support a new player experience and progression. We wanted to be able to write the history of these characters with an original story without being tied to a particular continuity or feature set. Now, I can understand that, but again, it was always a bit confusing because obviously Batman, well, he kind of dies, I guess, at the end of Arkham Knights. So it kind of just made sense naturally for the story to go where it did. But obviously, it taking the turn that it did, people were like, okay, that's still a bit confusing, right? But I can understand the method to the madness there. Now, can you play through the entire game as the same character, or will the story require you to play as each in different parts? Will submissions force us to play specific characters? Now, we have actually heard about this in the gameplay demo already, but Holes in T said you can play through the entire game as any character you want. There are no missions that force you to switch characters, although there is story content and a few side activities that are hero specific. So there are missions that force you to switch characters, but I get it, like, it's, you know, we saw it there, in the gameplay trailer where you had to be either Red Hood or Nightwing, I do believe. So, do all characters have the option to do stealth attacks? Asking in reference to Red Hood, maybe you can add silencers to his guns, and I'm wondering if we can spec down different combat trees, like Red Hood, for instance. Can we spec more into hand-to-hand combat, or is he just guns? And this is a very big answer, so, let's get into this. Silencers. No, sorry. The guns are loud in combat, although you can still use the projectiles at medium range as distractions because the sound of the high-tech pistols doesn't travel as far as a regular gun. All the knights have stealth takedowns, though. Red Hood always uses his guns for ranged attacks and uses hands and feet with lots of pistol whip strikes for his melee attacks. Every hero's ability tree adds new moves and improves stats, so rather than having the option to play bare hands mode instead of using weapons, the ability design focuses on unlocking / adding new moves. Where you chose to invest in the ability tree early on is about choosing my apologies, I literally just lost where I was. Between unlocks that reflect how you want to play. So for example, I like to use Red Hood's grab and throw abilities, so unlock them early on in the tree, whereas a hit player who wants to shoot a lot might put more energy on unlocking more range damage boosts. It's about how you want to express yourself in combat. RE trees There are 3 ability trees per hero, plus a knighthood tree you unlock later. I'm going to assume knighthood tree is like an endgame progression. Not sure if they've already mentioned that. Please let me know in the comments below. And then the momentum abilities are a whole other thing. So where you put your ability points and what challenges you complete to get momentum abilities will really change how you play, especially at the start. Very impact answer there. Very good, let's continue. Are the random crimes completely dynamic? Like, if we don't go save someone getting mugged, can we come back 2 hours later and they're still waiting to get rescued? Or will we be able to have consequences of our choices to create a sense of realism and urgency like the comics and films? It depends on the crime. Some of the random opportunistic crime will still linger unless the player moves to intervene. Most of the bigger, more premeditated crimes have a failure condition if the player retreats after engaging. And of course, once the player returns to the belfry and ends the night's patrol, those crimes won't be there the next night. I really like the sound of that. I wonder if it's like something that you can control, like maybe the crime gets drastically more difficult as the night progresses, so you have to not retreat, but you have to kind of be like, okay, I'll go to the belfry now and kind of reset the night, you know what I mean? Like, kind of, almost like a Dying Light situation. Why does Nightwing have a Fortnight glider? Here we go, this is gonna be a good one. Lol, the flying trapeze was inspired by a couple of ideas. First, some of the classic issues in the Nightwing solo book where he extends his aerialist moves with jet-powered gliders. Second, we like the death-defying angle of him looking at all the various stealth drones in Batman's arsenal and calculating he could just get away with hanging off of one of the smaller models and still be able to maintain or gain altitude with it. It's designed to feel a bit improvised, dependent on its extreme athleticism, which fits Nightwing's approach to everything. Flying, it has such a different feel from Batgirl's cape gliding, and it blends really well with his parkour and leap moves, as well as with grappling, which I can understand. I imagine Red Hood is very much the same, which we then get a question about it. What was your thinking or inspiration having Red Hood's mystical leap as his reversal ability? Not to criticise its conclusion, I know that Jason probably has the most connection to mystical arts than the other 3, it's just that it caught many people off guard. So here we go. With each of the 4 heroes, we looked for a unifying theme to the heroic evolution, to link the new abilities that would unlock on their way to knighthood. With Red Hood, we looked at a few examples of the lore around his resurrection in the Lazarus Pit and subsequent conditioning. I did mention a Lazarus Pit in the gameplay, in my In Defense of Gotham Knights video. We really like the idea that as Jason starts to confront the trauma of dying and being brought back, he begins to be able to tap into some lost abilities. In the same way that he's tried to reinvent himself from anti-hero to hero while retaining his strengths, he discovers he can channel these mystic talents in ways he finds familiar. Through his physicality, in how he moves, and also in how he fights, and even how he uses his weapons, we'll see that the Mystic Leap is just one manifestation of those powers, which is really sweet. I'm glad that they're not just using it as a traversal thing, and it may end up being just quite a big part of Red Hood's kit in general. In all seriousness, when it came to traversal, how did you make each knight feel distinctly different from the other in how they traverse the roofs and alleys of Gotham? So this is quite a big one. TLDR, they're all different in feel. Until you play them for a little bit, it's hard to appreciate how much it changes how you roam around Gotham. Obviously, if you want to read the full thing, please pause it and do so. But if there's a TLDR, I will definitely take it with the way my voice is at the moment. So, hey, I'll just jump in there to remind everyone that what Jeff is talking about are the specific, unique traversal abilities of the Knights. But remember that on top of these, all 4 of our characters can traverse the world using parkour, grappling, and the bat cycle. Of course, visually and animation-wise, there are differences in the way Nightwing will vault over a wall compared to, say, Red Hood, but the base traversal mechanics are shared across all of them. Is there a counter-attack mechanism? When Red Hood is fighting the Talon Gladiator, it looks like he's got some unblockable attacks coming in, but can you counter a block? If you remember from the gameplay demo, Red Hood fought a Talon Gladiator, and that's what they're referring to. So, we do counter, but as you spotted, it's not in a quick time event kind of way. Our combat system has regular and armoured attacks, which means that they can't be interrupted by normal moves, so you have to counter them with piercing abilities. Some enemies also have guard block, which we counter with guard break abilities. So, our combat system has these layers where you sometimes need to provide a specific answer to a specific problem. Many player power moves can't be interrupted after the warm-up animation, so you can sometimes time that to your advantage. Okay, what roles, archetypes would you say the cast fulfill, and what are some builds each character might particularly excel in? So, rad question. I think Robin is the best stealth focused hero. Red Hood deals high damage at range and can capitalize on enemy clusters. Batgirl has some health-focused powers and has some cool hack stuff in the environment abilities, and Nightwing has the furthest combat mobility and has the most co-op support abilities. So that alone does tell me that Nightwing might be the easy option of the game, potentially, right? There's a lot of variety in playstyle, though, so it's not 100% straightforward to answer. Like, I could build a high melee DPS Batgirl build, and I do a lot because I love her beatdown ability. You have options depending on what great gear you find and what skills you decide to invest the most points in. So very similar in sense to Marvel's Avengers, where, for the most part, most characters are ranged just by the way the game is, but they are supposed to excel in different things, and that is kind of what I'm getting out of that one. Will the character armor upgrades be visible? I noticed in the trailer that Red Hood had different guns in the first half and second half of the gameplay walkthrough. Will it be the same for armor? Pick it up through combat drops, equip it, and it changes our look? And can we choose different outfits for the buffs, but keep the original design of the characters, so like transmog, right? Right, lots of mini questions, so here we go. When you get a suit or a blueprint, it has a visual style, a colorway, and stats. Weapons have a visual style and stats for each suit you wear. Additionally, you can customize mask, logo, gloves, and footwear. There's a lot of customization for each suit, and there are a lot of different styles for guns, tonfas, batarangs, sticks. Generally, the visuals get more badass as the higher tiers, but each tier has a variety of suit styles, which we saw in the gameplay walkthrough, right? Where you get a heroic tier, for example. You can equip any gear in your inventory whenever you want, but for getting new gear, you return to the Belfry. The workbench in the Belfry is connected to a 3D printer, and so as long as you have materials, you can craft any blueprint you find. Materials drop from activity rewards, supply chests, and defeated enemies. You can equip mod chips, think gems in other games, at any time, and if you find them mid-mission, which is cool. Let's get those mods built up. Let's start, really pushing these builds. For extra visual customization, you also obtain extra colorways, override the colors of a suit, and transmogs override the whole visual look of a suit. And as you play, you also find transmogs for suit styles you craft often, so if for some reason you want to override the look of your ultra awesome legendary tier suit with the visual of the suit from the start of the game, you could do that. Although, judging by the fact it's an ultra awesome legendary tier suit, probably doesn't want you to do that. This gives you some flexibility if your favourite gear stats-wise doesn't have the look you want, and it's all earned in-game. If you complete a story mission solo, can you replay the story mission again with a friend that hasn't completed it? We get a new developer saying, absolutely, if your friend invites you into their game, you'll play the story at the point where they are in their progression. The inverse is also true, meaning that if you invite a friend into your game, they will be able to play alongside you, even if you are further in the story than them. And then, when they return to their own game, they will play the missing chapters, and they then have the option to either replay the part they played in co-op with you, or simply skip ahead if they don't want to go through it again. So, replayable missions confirmed right there. Will there be any point in the story where the Gotham Knights work with the GCPD, and will the GCPD be a threat to the Knights? The GCPD of Gotham Knights is very anti-vigilante, and also frankly more corrupt than ever. Obviously without Batman, that makes a lot of sense. Without getting into spoilers, the player has one ally on the force, Renee Montoya, and even she's trying to decide how she feels about Batman's proteges picking up the baton. Over the course of the game, the player will need to bust dirty cops and try to stay clear of GCPD tactical teams that sometimes show up at the scene of the crime, which I imagine we will see when you do like random crime events and stuff. Like if you come back to that area, it'll probably be swarming with GCPD, but there will also have occasions when they can assist officers who are at risk of getting overwhelmed. Okay, now we're getting into quite the juicy questions, because this stuff is obviously, very serious, right? So I'm going to take this with the utmost maturity, because I know that a lot of people, especially people with disabilities, were a little bit, not offended, but they were a bit like, how does this work, right? What explanation will you give for Barbara recovering the use of her legs? Will it be like a chip like in the comics, or will there be that will here be that she never completely lost the use of her legs? I do not know if this was asked before due to the internet, but may I ask what you're doing for Barbara? Like, does she have some sort of metal spine or something that'll make her walk or move around? So, first, as with many of our characters and plot elements, the circumstances around Barbara's injuries differ in some important ways for how it's portrayed in the comics. Second, we worked with the awesome folks at Able Gamers to learn about different types of spinal injuries and the potential for someone to regain mobility. Barbara has been through multiple surgeries, followed by a lot of physical therapy and pain management. The player will see it in the belfry when she's doing exercises and stretches that are designed for that ongoing rehabilitation. She also has back bracing integrated into her suit, and you'll see it in her off-duty gear in the belfry. Finally, we've also listened to feedback from the community on their questions and concerns about how Barbara is represented. We've changed up some of that descriptions on the Gotham Knights site in response for that. So, if you want to see kind of what they've changed, make sure to go to the Gotham Knights website. I'm glad that they've done that, and I'm glad that they explained it in a really good way, and it seems that she's going to still get a lot of representation. Question from Taladia Plays. I like Taladia, he's a good friend of mine. My question are, what was the inspiration for the Batbite to look like the way it does in game? And was it from the comics or something else? I think it looks amazing, by the way. Somewhere in our early creative conversations, we had the visual idea of a bat holding a front wheel, and it gave rise to the exotic suspension of the bat cycle. We knew that our bat cycle was your ride around the city, but we didn't want it to feel just like a motorcycle that anybody could have. So it became this awesome, heavy toy leftover from the Batcave. We wanted it to feel like you could jump off it at any time, and it could take care of itself, in a smart way so that influenced the design as well. It's a bike, but also this crazy indestructible thing you can patrol around Gotham on. Full credit to our amazing character team for executing this one. They took the inspiration from our design and came back with this beautiful ultra metal thing with its own personality, and I have drifted every flat surface in the city on this thing, which obviously sounds really great. So, when considering the scale and scope of Gotham Knights, we had to prioritise and focus our efforts to deliver the game at a satisfying level of quality for current gen. We totally understand that this is upsetting the players who don't own a current gen console yet, and believe me, we really didn't make this choice lightly, but in the end we wanted to focus on delivering a game we are truly proud of. This is about the cancellation of former gen. Then we get a bit of confirmation that this game will not be at all connected to the CW Gotham Knights show, which is great. Then we see here about accidentally hitting civilians at max speed with our bikes, basically saying we can't do that. Nightwing simps asking for cake expansion. We get into a bit of jokey territory, so I won't bother about that. And then the devs get asked about their favourite things. Not a lot when it comes to sort of information on this one. But, you know, it's okay. So we'll you know what? We'll read these two because there's a bit there. It's pretty hard to give a spoiler-free answer on this one, but I have to say I really love how the relationship between the Knights evolves throughout the game, as they each deal in their own way with the death of Bruce, but also come together as a family. As for a more purely gameplay-focused answer, I greatly enjoy pummeling one enemy after the other with Batgirl. It's very focused, combatant, my apologies, and I find it very satisfying. Hard to pick a favourite at all between the villain story missions and roaming the open world looking for crime. There's something about discovering a large crime with lots of bad guys and jumping into ruin their day, especially after I just crafted new gear. I got on little anti-crime sprees and neglect my next mission for a couple of hours. My vigilante priorities are kind of flexible, and then that is it for the first Q&A. That sounds incredible. You know, in my opinion, this sounds absolutely amazing. But I want to hear what you guys think down below. Allow me to waste no more time. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to like the video, and I'll see you guys in a bit. Peace.